Now that you know how structural intonation works, let's take a look at attentional intonation, which is what I like to call it. Now this works with structural intonation. In fact, you can think of structural intonation as the foundation layer, and attentional intonation is on top of that. Let's start by taking a look at some important concepts that will help us understand what attentional intonation is, how to use it, and how the core system works through it. The first big concept is purpose, meaning why you are saying something. Everything that you say, every sentence, every phrase, every interjection is going to have some purpose. Why would you say something if you don't have a reason to say it? Maybe you're hungry, for example, and you need to get some food. So you say, I'm hungry. Maybe you think that Tom wants to go to work, but you correct him and say, no, Tom wants to go home. Or maybe you just want to vent your emotions so that you can feel better. Either way, there's always a reason for saying something. In addition to purpose, the second big concept is context. In the broadest, most general sense, context is simply what you're talking about, where structural intonation might be a little more closely tied to the grammar and the structure of the sentence. When we're talking about context, it's more related to the vocabulary. So for example, if I'm talking about dogs, that's the topic. I'm not talking about cars. Or instead of the topic, context might be about the situation. Purpose and context, the why and the what, combine to help create the meaning in everything that you say. This is layered on top of the basic grammatical meaning and the structural intonation, and we can also further layer emotional intonation on top of that, but more on that in another lesson. Now, the very first thing that we have to understand, in addition to those two concepts, is the difference between word level stress and sentence level stress. This is actually where I see a lot of resources either not explaining it quite right or not mentioning an important detail. We're going to cover that here. At the word level, all words have their own word level stresses. So word level means word by word. But every sentence or thought group has a particular purpose as a whole unit, kind of like one big word. And this is what we call the sentence or phrase level as opposed to the word level. Every sentence or thought group has a focus word. So if you have multiple thought groups, you can have multiple focus words in the same sentence. Now the focus word is the word that gets the most attention. We've talked a little bit about it before, how it will get a little bit extra pitch. It might also get a little bit louder and longer depending on what we're doing. Now many people call the focus word the most important word, and that's one way to look at it, but there can be many important words in a sentence. Even an article like the, for example, can be very, very important for meaning, even though it doesn't get any stress. Instead, think of the focus word as the most important information at the sentence level, or the thought chunk level, based on the purpose and context of that sentence or thought group. In other words, the purpose and context of that sentence or thought group naturally give a particular word more attention than the other words in the same sentence or thought group. So this isn't about rigid rules. This is an organic, living thing. In English, if there's no special context, the focus word will naturally fall on the last content word, which we've talked about before. Then when we have a special context or purpose, we can then shift that focus around to another word to match that purpose or context. Tom wants to go home. Tom wants to go home. Home. It gets a little bit more focus than all the other stresses in that sentence. But if we say, Tom wants to go home, Tom wants to go home, now I'm making it even bigger, still keeping it the focus word, but I'm making it even bigger. And this now sounds like I'm emphasizing or clarifying, because maybe you think he wants to go somewhere else. I'm saying, no, he wants to go home. It's about where he wants to go. If I say, Tom wants to go home, Tom wants to go home, Now the purpose is to show who wants to go home, again, maybe for clarification. Warning. Most resources seem to talk about this as there being one stress in a sentence, or at least their explanations can make it seem that way. But this is not true. Otherwise, why would we have all these word stress rules? Now, there is one primary stress, which is the focus word, in a thought group or a sentence. So if I say, I want to go to the beach, want and go are still stressed. They just can't stand out as much as beach, which is the default focus word here. And this brings us to the core system and how it works through attentional intonation. And we saw before with structural intonation how there's sort of three levels. There's a rise, there's a fall, and then there's a flat. And we didn't talk too much about the flat intonation because it's not very common. But for attentional intonation, we still also get this sort of high, medium, low idea. It's not a rise, flat, fall in attentional intonation. It's different. And the way this works here, stress and intonation are not exactly the same thing, but especially with the way that English works and the way the rhythm works, intonation and stress are tied together. And so when we talk about how the core system works through attentional intonation, this is actually a combination between the regular unstress versus stress and the attentional intonation of the focus word. So if I have an unstressed syllable, whether that's a word by itself like of, or if it's an unstressed syllable in a bigger word like about or combine, that unstressed syllable is the low. We know that it needs to be shorter, quieter, usually lower in pitch. Then a stressed syllable, you might think that a stressed syllable would be high. Compared to an unstressed syllable, yes, it needs to be a lot louder, longer, and higher in pitch. We've talked about that before. It's extremely important that you get a good difference between the stressed and the unstressed. But as for how the core system works through attentional intonation, the stressed syllables are actually at the middle level because, remember, we have the focus word. The focus word needs to stand out a little bit more than the other stressed words in that sentence or thought chunk. So the focus word is the high. Now, don't get confused. As I said, structural intonation, we have this rise and this fall. We're not talking about rising on a stressed syllable, falling on an unstressed syllable. It works completely differently for attentional intonation, but the same basic concept of high and low is still there. It's just not about rising and falling. Although technically that kind of happens as we go through all the syllables anyway, just not in the same way that structural intonation works. In fact, the underlying core hidden system of intonation is also the rhythm system. Let's say I have a ball and I say catch. Okay, I'm getting your attention, I'm throwing it up to you, you have to catch it. Don't think of that literally as the rise and the fall, that's just the basic idea. Catch, I'm giving focus, I'm trying to get your attention, okay? Attentional intonation. But when we put a particular focus on a particular word, let's say it's at the beginning, I say, I want to go to the beach. I'm not throwing the ball up to you, but the ball sort of goes up in terms of attentional intonation, it goes up on that focus word, and then if it's a statement, it'll just continue to fall, be pulled down by gravity. So it's like, or if it's going through the sentence, it sort of bumps up and then falls down from there. Then if we have a question, like a yes or no question where we rise at the end, then that's like, if the focus word is at the end, I don't move it, then of course I just throw the ball to you. But if I say, do you want to go to the beach? It's going up sooner and then goes to you. Now there is possible variation on this. We're not going to worry about that. That's just the basic idea. Now let's look at our favorite example. I want to go to the beach. So we know that the focus word is on beach. It just gets a little bit more. That's it. Just a little bit more. I want to go to the beach. And remember that falling intonation at the end of a statement can make it feel almost like it's not more, but that's a little bit of an illusion. Now let's go through the sentence and give each word the focus and see what happens to the meaning. I want to go to the beach. Where's Tom? I don't know, why? Well, I want to go to the beach and John told me that Tom wanted to go. Tom hates the beach. I want to go to the beach, not Tom. So we can see based off that context, based off the purpose, I'm emphasizing, I'm clarifying, I want to go to the beach. Now, when you shift the focus word, it doesn't have to be really big. Okay, I don't have to say, I want to go to the beach. That's sort of making it a little emphasized. If you just say, I want to go to the beach, I want to go to the beach. It just needs to stand out a little bit more, but based on the particular context, you can easily exaggerate or emphasize that shift in the focus word depending on what you're trying to do. What about want? Hey, are you ready to leave? I can't, I have to work. I thought we were going to the beach. I want to go to the beach, but I have too much work. Next, the to in want to. Remember, shifting the focus word, you need a special reason based on the context. The preposition to very rarely gets any stress, and in some combinations like want to, it is even less common for it to get stress, because between want, you have a desire, to points to the end point, go, in this case, go to the beach, that's the end point of your desire. So it's just a bridge between want and the action. So I can't think of an example where we would give to and want to the focus. So we're going to move to the next one, go. For this one, we're already at the beach, and my friend is buried in the sand. So I see you got buried. Yeah, the kids wanted to bury me. You said you wanted to go to the beach, so here we are. Yeah, I said I wanted to go to the beach, not be covered in it. This next example, I'm lost trying to find my friend's house as I'm driving. Hey, I can't quite find your house. I'm lost. You said to go to the beach from Main Street, right? No, I said to go to Main Street from the beach. Oh, okay, I went the wrong way. Now the word the also is usually not commonly stressed, but there is definitely a use for that. Why did you bring me here? Well, you said you wanted to go to the beach, right? Yeah, but I don't want to go to any beach. I want to go to the beach. What do you mean? See, you brought me to this beach. But this isn't a very good beach. The beach that I'm thinking of is the best beach. It's the one that's a little farther north. Why didn't you say that? I thought it was obvious. Why would we come to any beach when we could go to the best beach? Then, of course, we can give a special purpose to beach. The teach. The bar for teachers. Why are we here? You said you wanted to come here. You wanted to go to the teach. No, I said I want to go to the beach. Well, I guess we're in the wrong place.